Moses knew that he didn't have much longer to live, and he gathered the new generation of Israelites to make sure they knew everything that had happened to them since they left Egypt. He told them about all the mistakes along the way, and the reason their parents weren't allowed to enter Canaan. Moses made sure they understood that they needed to keep the 10 Commandments. He told them the promises God gave to them if they followed these commandments, and the curses if they didn't. He especially warned them against idolatry. Moses also wrote all of the rules for sacrificial offerings and lifestyle in a book that he told them to put in the side of the ark for reference. They were in Moab, a country next to Canaan, and Moses went up Mount Nebo, and God showed him Canaan in the distance. Moses lay down and died at the age of 120. Satan celebrated that he had caused Moses to sin, and therefore die before reaching Canaan. If Moses hadn't sinned, then he wouldn't have died. He would have been taken directly to heaven. Soon after his death, Jesus came to resurrect him and take him to heaven. As Jesus approached the body of Moses to bring him back to life, Satan was there and tried to stop him. Satan was too weak for Jesus and told Jesus that he wanted Moses because of his sin. Jesus told Satan that Moses had repented, so God had removed all of his sins, and he resurrected Moses and took him to heaven. After Moses died, Joshua became the leader. He had been a leader under Moses and had been one of the 2 spies that encouraged people to go into Canaan. God encouraged Joshua, saying that he would be with him as he was with Moses, and if Israel followed his commandments, he would make it easy to conquer Canaan. God told Joshua that he will separate the water of the Jordan River so that they can cross. The priests had to travel over the river first with the ark, which represented the presence of God. God made the land dry across the river like he did at the Red Sea. They all crossed and then built a monument so that they would see it and remember and be comforted that God is with them. In the desert, God was testing and reproving the Israelites to become better followers and remove the idolatry and unhealthy practices they had got from the Egyptians. Now that they were out of the desert, the process of correction was over, and they were allowed to be circumcised and do Passover again. We are in the wilderness now, coming out of Babylon. We are under the correcting time, where we have to remove all idolatry and unhealthy practices that we get from the world. If we are successful, we will get into New Jerusalem, into heavenly Canaan. The other countries had made fun of Israel for staying so long in the desert. These countries said that God didn't have the power to bring them into Canaan. Now that God had separated the Jordan River and the Israelites had crossed it into Israel, the enemies were silent. Joshua was praying and saw a man with a sword. He didn't look like an Israelite, so Joshua wondered if he was an enemy. The man revealed that he was Jesus. Joshua bowed down, and Jesus told him to take off his shoes in respect. Jesus then told Joshua how to take over the city of Jericho. The army had to walk around the city once a day for 6 days. Then on the 7th day, they had to go around Jericho 7 times. Joshua did this and ensured they went around the city with the ark and priests, who blew trumpets. The watchmen in Jericho were amazed at what was happening. They couldn't understand what it all meant. Some of them made fun of the Israelites, but others remembered hearing about God separating the Red Sea and Jordan for them, and they were scared. Strong warriors were posted at the gates, ready to fight, and it looked to them that it would be impossible for the Israelites to succeed. After going around the city the 7th time, on the 7th day, the priests blew the trumpets, and the walls fell down. This made the people of Jericho terrified and too paralyzed with fear to stop the Israelites from taking the city. This miracle was done to make sure that the Israelites understood that when they conquered Canaan, it was by God's power, not theirs. It also increased their faith in God to protect and fight for them, and showed how wrong they were to listen to the 10 spies who told them that they would fail if they tried to take over Canaan. We as Christians are to fight the world. Satan has set up theories and entertainments that work against God. And it seems impossible for us to teach the world to follow God when we are fighting against such big, rich things. We have to remember that God fights with us, and He tells us that we will win. Joshua was a wise leader that was devoted to God. Just before he died, he reminded them all of the events in the wilderness, including how the king of Moab followed Balaam, but Baal was a false and powerless god against the true God. Joshua told them they shouldn't delay to decide whether they are going to serve God or any of the false gods. The Israelites told him that they couldn't serve any other gods after seeing the true God rescuing them from Egypt and doing such amazing things in protecting them in the desert. Therefore they promised to serve and obey God.